Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, my guest is Jeni Smith, founder of NetKno and a leading voice in strategic networking, and someone who has turned networking into both a business and a research focus. Jenny helps professionals, teams, and organizations build stronger and more powerful and purposeful connections. She's built NetKno to support people in navigating networking with confidence, whether that's in a room full of strangers, within large organizations, or online. And she's also currently undertaking a PhD at Durham University on networking. I went to Durham as well, so this episode is even more special.
Oh.
Today, we'll unpack networking from inside out, why people fear it, what makes someone a powerful networker, how to build social capital, which you'll know what that means later, and much more. So, Jenny, it's genuinely an honor to have you on the show. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Sid, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. Honestly, I've been looking forward to this since you reached out when we had a first chat, and I'm dead happy to be here. I'm really looking forward to it.
You're welcome, man. Thank you so much. And let's kick off then. If you could give us a little more insights about your personal life, how you got into the field of networking, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been networking professionally for about 20 years now, which makes me feel really old. But I fell into it completely by accident. I don't think anyone, like, when they're a kid, wants to be a networker when they grow up. I'd never even heard of networking, to be honest, till I was um early 20s doing my undergrad in Liverpool, and I was doing some voluntary work at a company just to get something on my CV. And the owner of the business that I was volunteering at took me along to this networking event. And to be honest, it scared the life out of us. I hid in the toilets most of the night. Um, but eventually, I think the second event I went to, I actually plucked up the courage to go and talk to someone. And just from that moment, really, I still remember that first conversation with that first person. He was called Livingston, and he like updid furniture. I still remember it 20 years on. And from then, I just fell in love with it. Like the being able to just meet different people doing different things, passionate about different things, learn from them, find out about things that were happening that you would never find about were it not for just having these conversations. So I accidentally like turned networking into an obsession, a passion, a career all at the same time. And that's just been it's been a massive part of my life ever since, really, the last 20 years. Yeah.
Amazing. So you're basically doing a mastery in like PhD, like you said, in networking, right? So which is
Yeah,
phenomenal.
yeah. So I've spent, a lot of my career either attending events. So I invented a job where I used to go networking full time. So I went to like five
Oh,
or six
wow.
events every day. So I didn't pay for food or wine for like a year, which was class. I was a lot younger back then though. And then I hosted networking events for about 5 years. So I used to run events. So I was on the other side of it. And then, did other things around running other people's networks for them. And so networking's always been a part of my like professional work, and then it's only the last 3 years that I've delved into the academic side of networks and what that looks like. So the PhD journey started at Durham at the business school, and it's given me the language to be able to articulate the things I'd observed and experienced for so long. I'm now able to understand them from a theoretical perspective. So it's given me this additional layer of understanding. And then now being able to create my own new knowledge as well through the research that I'm doing is just, I find it really interesting and exciting. Well, humans are interesting, and that's really what it's all about. It's just about people. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's why I've got really good questions for you. And what I've done is, Jenny, I've structured this episode in three parts: before
Oh,
networking, during networking, and after networking. Quite simple.
lovely. Okay, let's do it.
So before networking, right? So first question I find crazy that really I want to know your perspective on is like, why do you think people are fearful about networking? Because it's just talking to another human.
It is. Well, it is, but
Yeah.
so many layers to it, Sid. So, oh, I think when you strip it all back, the biggest issue that I see most frequently, or the biggest barrier, for people is this fear of social rejection that we all have. We're all programmed to fear social rejection. As humans, we want to be accepted. We need to feel like we're part of a community where, that historically, if your tribe rejected you, you potentially couldn't survive. So it's very ingrained in us to want to be accepted. And networking events, especially, our brains often see those as established tribes that we're not part of, and we're trying to break into them. And often we feel like we don't belong there. So there's a big sense of this is why often when people do start networking, it's easier to start at places where you feel like you have things in common. When we've got stuff in common with people, it's easier to talk to them. We see ourselves in them, so it's easier to imagine ourselves within that community. So it can often, we speak the same language. You understand acronyms and things like that. So having commonality is often a nice way to start. But yeah, there's this innate fear. I mean, I'm sure everyone has got a memory of at some point, usually at school, when they didn't get invited to the kids' birthday party or their friends, left them out. And it really hurts us. And our brains experience that rejection in the same part of our brain as we experience physical pain. The only difference is the social rejection lasts longer. We remember it, and it really influences how we interact. So for a lot of people, the idea of going to a networking event is putting themselves in a very vulnerable, potential, painful situation. So that fear that people have, it's actually them, their brains are trying to protect them. So it goes quite deep. It depends a lot on people's previous experiences with social rejection or with vulnerability. Our tolerance for vulnerability changes depending on what's going on in our lives. So if things are going really well for you, for example, in work or your business, things are going great, you've got a broader tolerance for vulnerability. Whereas if you're losing a lot of contacts, or you're not doing great, you're not making a lot of money, or you've broken up with your partner, or there's stuff going badly, that window for tolerance of vulnerability is a lot smaller. So even if people are listening and they're not feeling like they're ready to network now, it might be the context in which they're in currently. So give it a few weeks, give it a month, give it 6 months, and then you might feel like, as things are getting better, you might be able to tolerate putting yourself out there a bit more.
Makes sense. And what would be your advice for someone who can see networking in a more positive way? I think you talk about networking as an act of service and learning from different perspectives. So, why do you
Yeah,
think like that? That maybe this way of thinking could help someone get over this fear?
absolutely. I think the a big thing, and it goes back to that vulnerability piece. We feel like networking somewhere that we have to go to show off, or we have to go when we're successful. And a lot of people won't go to networking events until they deem themselves to be at a certain level in their careers, or in their when actually, if you can flip that upside down and look at networking as an opportunity to learn, and it's not about you, it's about other people, and no one's thinking about you as much as you're thinking about you. And if you can go to a networking event with the mindset, instead of I'm here to like impress everyone, because you're there to learn. And you know research and experience has shown over and over again that knowledge is the most valuable resource that we get from networks. So going to a networking event to learn, it completely change. It's not about you. And hopefully it encourage, and that'll help people go networking sooner rather than waiting. It's like not going to school because you don't know enough, not going to a networking event because you're not knowledgeable enough. It's the same thing. You should go now when you're just beginning, and just ask questions and listen, really listen. And those skills will develop really quickly, and then you'll set yourself apart from other professionals, other candidates for jobs, potentially, whatever it is. But the knowledge that you tap into will just it's unbelievable.
I love it. I totally agree. Like, even I've been on so many networking events and I learn about different things that I never thought from that angle, let's say. And even this podcast, learning from different perspectives. So much I've learned.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it helps with, like, I don't know if you've experienced it, but like, I'm sure, like, hosting a podcast, going to a networking event. conversations with people, it builds up your ability to have conversations, like, and it helps with
100%.
presentation skills. Do you see that? Like, has the podcast and networking done that for you?
Agree, 100%. And like even at work, right, when they have like work events, I'm more confident to talk to everyone around, have good conversation, not just like work related conversation, but also has, which is useful, right? And I read this article, Jenny, you'll find interesting, was more like I think Gen Z are struggling to have like corridor, like coffee catch ups in between office work hours with colleagues because they don't know what to talk about.
Yeah, the social apocalypse, I call it. Digital adoptions had a massive impact. Obviously, lockdown had a massive impact as well, but we spend the majority of our times communicating through screens now. So real time in-person conversation, because humans are so unpredictable, that makes them scary. So we have to learn to obviously read each other's social nonverbal cues, try and predict people's behavior to make us feel safe, to build trust. And the only way to do that is to spend time doing it. And unfortunately, the way that the world is, with our obsession with efficiency, often we don't spend as much time having that water cooler small
Yeah,
talk chit
water
chat.
cooler.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and then you miss out though. You miss out on like finding out about people's family and where they're going on holiday. And like, a lot of people don't like the small talk stuff, but actually that's really where we nurture the relationship with the human, the other person. It's not a transactional information sharing through an email. It's like, oh, how's things? I know that last time I spoke to you, your mum wasn't too well. Is she doing okay? Like, and that's the emotional connection often a lot of people are searching for online. But we get that when we spend time with people in person without a screen between us. We can really get that depth of connection. And it's like I was talking to my husband the other day. Um, it's like learning to drive. Do you drive, Sid?
Not yet, not yet.
Like one day, one day. Well, driving, you learn to drive, so you learn, how to use the gear stick and you learn how to do all what you need to do. But actually, it's only once you start driving that you learn to read the mannerisms of other drivers. So you can start like predicting, oh, I can tell that that person doesn't really know where they're going, so I'm going to give them a bit of space. I can tell that they're like a bit like crazy or whatever. You learn to do that just by driving, and conversation's exactly the same. So the only way to learn how to read and to have those like in-person conversations is just by having them.
Yeah, agreed. And when I'm in a like a group meeting in a networking event, I just know looking at the body language, who wants to leave, who wants to stay in the conversation.
Oh, they're both, yeah. So, yeah, yeah. But then once you can read other people, then you can also mirror and emulate how you want to come across. So you're a bit more in control of conversations as well. So it's quite a powerful thing for you to be able to read others, but also then to manage how you are representing yourself at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into the second part, which is during the networking event, because that's where the meaty information is there. Jenny, when we walk into a networking event, we often see some people having the best conversation, mingling with
Mhm.
everyone, being a social butterfly. And while we also see someone who's just in the corner, just with a drink in his hand, and not really talking with someone, right? So, according to you, what's the difference between someone who is a powerful networker and someone who's not?
See, this is where I think there's a lot of misconception. I think people see the social butterfly, the one that talks to everyone, as like the power networker, but that's often not the case. For me, I would rather have a conversation with the quiet person holding the drink and find out about them, because everyone else is missing out on that person. So I want to know what they're thinking, what they're working on, who they are, what they're interested in. Um, the I think a lot of it comes down to, especially networking about environments, it comes down to like introvert, extrovert. We're all ambiverts. We're all a mixture of the two. It's just where you sit on that scale, and it's about your energy and your communication. And extroverts tend to get their energy from being around people and they think as they speak. So they're very talkative and that's how they process. Whereas introverts often get their energy from being on their own, and they'll think before they speak. So if you put them into a traditional networking event environment where it's open and there's lots of people and the extroverts are all jacked up on energy because they're around lots of people and they're all chatting, it can be really tiring for introverts. So how they experience event environments is very different. And it doesn't mean that they haven't got anything to say. It just means that they're thinking about it before they articulate it. So again, I think um the event looking for events that allow you to shine is really useful. So for the introverts, looking for events where there's opportunities for more one-to-one conversations rather than one-to-many, or going to events that have got a purpose and a focus, like a seminar or workshop, in it that allows that facilitation of conversation. Um, and then network more through one-to-ones. So going for coffee with someone, inviting them for a drink before an event starts, that's all networking as well. It doesn't have to be that room full of people. So figuring out who you are to be able to then put your best foot forward and put yourself in the position where you're going to really shine and showcase your personality or share your thoughts and ideas because people want to hear them. That's really going to help.
Yeah, makes sense. So basically adapting the events or networking or depending on how we are, whether that's extrovert or introvert. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding out, yeah, figuring out who you are and what works for you is going to allow you to show up and enjoy it more. You're going to get more from it personally, but you're also going to be more authentic, and it's going to come, that comes across, and that really helps people make that connection and build trust as well.
Yeah, 100%. And just talking about authenticity, love your LinkedIn videos, Jenny. You come across so authentic and you share practical networking tips.
So,
Yeah, and I saw one of your videos that I would love to ask you more question that also will
ooh,
help us being a powerful networker or someone who's not. So you mentioned this book, Social and Personal Identity, Understanding Yourself. And
it's back there. Yeah, it's right on the
yeah,
floor. There it is.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have added that book to my reading list as well. I'm definitely going
Good
to
book.
read that.
Amazing.
Uh, yes, and you said the relationships you have with yourself is directly impacting the relationships you have with others and vice versa. So I really want to know like how someone's personal identity influences the relationship they have with others.
Oh, how much time have you got, Sid? I could talk about this for days. This is so interesting to me, honestly. So there's loads of different layers to this. I think a big one is first and foremost, the relationship that you have with yourself directly influences the relationship you have with other people. So, people who are self aware, they're self accepting, they're connected to them, they know who they are, and they love themselves for that. They give themselves grace, they are able to reflect on themselves. That self reflection is really important. People who are able to do that are much better equipped to be able to understand other people, to be able to connect with other people, but they're also but much better equipped to be able to like empathize with others and take the perspective of other people, which really helps in that forming of meaningful connections. People who really lack self-awareness or struggle and they're not able to reflect, often they can cling on to elements of their identity which often can be, for example, a job. They're so like that's such a big part of their identity that it will impact how they make decisions because they'll make decisions based on the fact that this is their identity and this is who they are. And the decisions aren't naturally maybe the most reflect that because they're not reflecting on actually what they think, they're just making decisions based on how they think they should, given that element of their identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes
That could be a
sense.
political view, it could be a job, it could be a religious view. Um, as there's Interestingly, like our identity is never formed. Our identity is forever changing and evolving. Every time we have an interaction with another person, this is where networking again can really come in. But when we interact with another person, they either validate how we see ourselves, if the reaction that we get from them validates how we see ourselves already, or it can go against how we see ourselves, which can be very disconcerting. Is that the right word? Um, unnerving for people. So again, people who are secure in themselves are better equipped to have interactions with others when they're reflexive, because they're able to, their identity and their self-acceptance is more robust. It's not as vulnerable. But because our identity is so malleable and it's forever changing, as things happen in your life, whether it's getting a new job, starting a new hobby, getting married, becoming a parent, our identities are always changing. And these feedback loops that we get from social interactions means our identity is also always changing. But because of that, it's a very vulnerable thing, our self-identity. And it's how we feel, it's directly linked to how secure we feel and how safe we feel. So the people who have built a more robust sense of self and they're more secure in themselves, that vulnerability is a lot smaller and it's less likely to make them scared of interactions, if that makes sense. Yes, it's all interlinked. Yeah.
So according to you, someone with a high self-identity, how do they come across during networking events?
People who are just self-secure and self-aware, they don't need to dominate other people. They don't need to impress. They don't need external validation. They don't need to show off and interject. They're able to, share their opinions and thoughts and connections, but they're not there to get that external validation because they've given it to themselves already. They don't need it from other people. People who are very insecure in themselves often need to create situations where they can feel superior to others, which that there's a lot of power dynamics that come into play within networking environments, and whether that's you know people who need to dominate others aren't necessarily very secure in themselves.
And how can we build this strong self-identity according to
Go
you?
to therapy, Sid. Everyone should go to therapy. They should. I do believe everyone should go to therapy. Yeah, a lot of self-work, like self-reflection, like reflecting on who you are and getting to know yourself and spending time. And it sounds really like fluffy, but it's not. This is like neuroscience, and it's spending time nurturing a relationship with yourself so that you are able to think critically and self-reflect and grow and look after yourself. Basically, having that relationship with you then allows you to have those external relationships with others, which is all networking is essentially. It's building those connections.
Yeah, it makes sense. If I see myself in the mirror as confident person, then I will be a confident person. Correct? So
Yeah,
it's
that self-efficacy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
makes sense. And when we are in that conversation, networking as well, you mentioned some subtle body language clues. So,
Mhm.
according to you, what are the subtle body language clues that make us more approachable during a networking event?
I mean, the if you can be open and stand, if you're on your own at an event, the worst thing you can do is get your phone out. I know we all do it because, we want to entertain ourselves and escape the world in which we live and escape our own thoughts. But again, this is where you need to spend time with your own thoughts to get to know yourself. But yeah, if you find yourself on your own at an event, keep your phone locked away, get rid of it, and just stand there openly and look around the room and wait for someone. And you talked about active service. This is where I always try and position this as an act of service. By standing on your own at an event with your head looking up, you're looking around, you're not like smiling way, but just doing that, just, approachable, get yourself a drink, stand by the buffet, the coffee, the bar, people always congregate there anyway. And then by standing on your own, you're giving everyone else in that room an option. So whether that's someone that arrives at the event after you, it's someone who's just finished one conversation and they've got no one to speak to, so they have a look around. You standing there is helping other people, so it takes a bit of practice because it feels a bit weird. But if you can get used to doing that, and if the scariest thing about networking is standing on your own, and you can get used to standing on your own, then there's nothing else. There's nothing else to be scared of.
Yeah, that again comes down to self identity, being okay to
Yeah,
stand alone.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yourself, and you can just have a cup of coffee, have a little look around the room. And again, it might feel weird to begin with, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with yourself. And again, no one's thinking about you as much as you are. We're all very are very like, I must look. People are gonna think I'm weird. No, they don't. Thinking about how weird they look. Everyone kind of thinking about how weird they look. So yeah. So if you can get comfy, just standing on your own. Another tip is to like start counting in your head. When adrenaline starts going and you're feeling a bit nervous, time slows down. It feels like it's forever, and it's not. If you can count in your head, you will not get to a couple of minutes. It won't even be a couple of minutes, and someone will come and talk to you. I promise.
Yeah, and I think I read in your blog, and you said when you're standing alone, right, you might be a entry point of someone who might have just entered the networking event, who
Yeah,
might have not.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So you being on your own is just giving someone else someone to talk to. So you're helping them out, and that's a nice thing. You think if rather than thinking, "Oh, I'm on my own," thinking I'm helping someone by being on my own.
yes. Again, act of service, like you said.
Acts of service, yes.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like I'm coming back to the self-identity bit, but like tell me more. Like what else have you learned from that book that could help our listeners who network better?
Ooh. So another big thing is, well, it feeds more into empathy, but in order to empathize, I think self-awareness and acceptance is really important. But we tend to be drawn to people. This is called homophily, and this birds of a feather flock together. The idea that, and I mentioned it previously before, it's easier to talk to people when we've got things in common. Um, the problem with doing that is when it comes to building our networks, if you are only talking to people that you've got things in common with, whether that's you work in the same industry, you're the same age, you're the same gender, race, culture, whatever. If you accidentally create these little echo chambers of knowledge for yourself. So once you've built up that ability to network, and when you are first starting out, it is easier to do that in spaces where you feel like, oh, I can see myself in them. And again, this is the self, and seeing your identity in others. When we see ourselves in others, it's easier to empathize. So often we feel safer with people who we see like ourselves in. This is often why we mirror each other as well, each other's mannerisms. It's a safety mechanism that we have. It's a way of, if you if we're in a conversation, I mirror you so that you see yourself in me, and it means you're more likely to be nice to me, I guess, if that makes sense when we see ourselves in each other. Yeah, it's really fascinating. But like I say, from a networking perspective, especially at a strategic level, if you are networking with people who think the way that you think or are in the same sector as you're creating those echo chambers. So it's really important to, again, push it to the next level of self-awareness and take a step back and say, right, am I just speaking to people who all have the same opinion as me, or they know the same things as me? Because if that's the case, I really need to then think more strategically and start networking outside those echo chambers and start building more diverse networks for knowledge access, innovation, taking different perspectives. Even internally within large organizations, they're often, different departments because you work together on a daily basis, you spend time together, you understand the objectives of each other. You create these little subcultures even within big companies. So building across the organization and making sure the accountants are talking to the marketeers, or talking to the legal team, who are talking, so because then if you can build that empathy and knowledge transfer either internally like that or just for your own network, it allows you to tap into the knowledge and insights from so many different perspectives. And there's loads of research into that. There's a really good Harvard Business Review article that looked at the value of businesses on the stock exchange whose CEOs had built diverse networks. And it was like, on average, they're valued at an additional, like, I think it was like 80 million more than businesses whose CEOs hadn't built those diverse networks. And again, it's about spotting innovative opportunities. It's about adopting new technologies, whatever it might be, but it's a really powerful access to knowledge tool.
Yeah, so tell me more. So, for example, I'm big into business and leadership, right? So, if I want to diversify my network, what kind of networking events would I should go? Should I go? Should I go in like AI related, which I don't know that much about, or should I go into? So, what kind of things I could do to diversify my network?
Yeah, starting with something that's interesting to you. So, like, if AI is of interest, or coding, or technology in any kind of way is of interest, some of the best, like, to be honest, I would say go and see what's at your local university. There's often open seminars. Go and sit in on some academic lectures on any subject because they're always fascinating. I once sat in on a full day of like horticulture, which is like gardening. Yeah, and honestly, all my plants are from Lego. I'm terrible with plants. I've got black fingers. Or from IKEA. I've got a plant over there. It's from IKEA. Um, but I learned a lot about organic ecosystems that's super applicable actually to business ecosystems. So there's a lot of stuff that you can take that's transferable, or you just learn different things. I've sat in on lectures of all kinds of different things. So the more diverse, the better. And then you also build up that tolerance and that ability to say, I've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about, but I'm really keen to learn. So please bear with me if I ask, basic questions. But honestly, every time I've put myself in those situations and said to people, I'm not from this world at all, but I would love to learn. They are so excited. These people are really passionate about this subject and they've made it their life's work often. And they are so excited that you've come in and that you want to learn about what they're passionate about. And people love to share their passion, and then it becomes contagious and you take away some insights or you just learn something different. So I would say look at the local colleges, universities, see what's going on. Look on any like networking event listing, and the more you feel like you don't belong there, try it, do it. Yeah, extreme working. Yeah.
That's kind of nerve-wracking because,
And
like, I'm thinking,
that's good though, Sid, because it puts you out of that comfort zone and it forces you to be that, and that's that your brain going, oh, I don't belong there. I'm the outsider. They're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to judge me. They're going to reject me. That's all going on. And just telling yourself, it's fine. We're safe. Everyone's going to be, and then you do it once and you find that people are lovely, and then you do it again, and then you build up the confidence. That's when the confidence comes. You need courage to start with. That's the first step. Then confidence comes by doing.
100%. And I just see like some leadership qualities in this already. So having the humility to go there and not knowing nothing, and then being curious, asking the questions, then listening. So it's just like leadership practice.
Absolutely. And that again comes back to self. If you are confident in yourself, you can give up the power you've created as someone who's a leader in your space. You can comfortably you don't need that. You can give that up and go back to being, I know nothing about this, and that humility and that self-reflection and all of that. Yeah, it all intertwines.
100%. And I was at an event the other day and someone said, "Oh, I'm thinking to start a podcast," which I don't know anything about. I got so excited. I was like, okay, you know what? You could do this, you could do that. And I totally agree with that enthusiasm and passion coming off someone who has so much expertise on this. Someone comes in, I don't know anything about it. We're like naturally willing to help.
Yeah. And you want to show them what you love and you want to share your knowledge and experience. And it's exactly the same the other way around when you're the one going into someone else's areas of interest or passion. People love, and it re-sparks it for them, I think, often, which is really nice as well.
Love it. I'm going to check some open lectures and I'm going to
Should
go
we
for some
know?
events.
I've inspired myself to do it as well. I need to go to more lectures that aren't on my subject. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll tag you on my Instagram and I do
I'll
it.
do it. Yeah, do it. I want to
Done,
know what you were talking about. Yeah.
done, done. And another question is, you also talk about social capital. So what is social capital, by the way?
So social capital is the value that we put on each other within society. And often it comes down to the access to resources that we have. Those resources could be things like, tangible like food and energy and like materials, or it could be networks. So you've got network capital. So it's that value of a person within an ecosystem, essentially. You've also got things like symbolic capital, which I find really interesting. So
What's that?
like things like like driving a certain kind of car, wearing
Mm.
certain clothes. Those symbols are basically a way of telling the world I have got access to money that allows me to wear these things. Therefore, you should deem me in such capacity. And it like power plays, a lot of power dynamics. So yeah, social capital, people with, within networks. Um, I'm a big fan of, connecting people to each other. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with networking. You meet someone and you're like, oh, you should speak to this person, and it's really exciting. You connect them together, and I really love doing that. I naturally like connecting people or information or whatever it is. Um, so when I was networking full time in Liverpool, I had no actual money. I was totally scared. But I had a really big network because I was going to like 4 or 5 events every day. I knew lots of people and I naturally loved connecting them together. So by doing that, I inadvertently like increased my capital within that ecosystem to the point where people would invite me to lots of other events that I wouldn't have access to were it not for those invitations because they wanted to tap into my network. So I kind of at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just something that organically happened. But I can look back now, I've got the academic lens and I can say, oh, that's what was happening there. So it wasn't strategic, it was accidental, but it did allow for, open so many doors. And you see it a lot in like career progression for individuals, organizations when they've got candidates applying for a role, if they're all on paper pretty similar, but one has got a really strong network, that's leverage, that's capital that allows that organization to access that person's network. So having them as part of the team will add value to them. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for it.
100%. And they say, right, your network is your net
You're
worth.
not your network.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah, they do. They do. Heard that.
Yeah, and one of my mentors did mention I really like this person is because even if he can't solve a problem, he knows someone who can do it. And
Yes. Problem solvers. Yeah. Speed of networks as well. So there's a really good book called The Speed of Trust that talks about when you've got that trust, things just happen quicker. You don't have to micromanage people. You just can give someone a job and it's going to get done because you've got that trust there. Versus when you don't and you have to have meetings about meetings about meetings, and then it takes a lot of time. But I think it's in my head that's quite a curved, it's like it's a slow thing to build, but once you have it, it really increases the speed and efficiency of everything, because trust takes time. Again, trust a lot about feeling safe with someone. We can predict their future behavior based on previous experience. And networks are really similar. Networks, relationships, it takes a long time to build, but when you have them, things can happen a lot quicker because you know who to call, you know who to ask, you can solve problems faster. But it's this kind of slow to build, but then everything happens faster off the back of it.
yeah, so what's your advice on how can someone build a stronger social capital, whether that's in networking events or in an organization?
You got to spend it to make it. So yeah, every time you add value into your network, so whether that's connecting people together, sharing information that's useful to them, sending them to an event that they'll get value from, bringing them into a project that gets them the experience they need, opening a door for them. Every time you do that, it's like spending capital. Every time you spend and you add value in, it comes back like a million times over. You end up building this real personal brand for yourself as someone who solves problems. This is when reciprocity kicks in as well. So by being the one that helps your network first, whether that's, making connections or just being a good listener, someone that, or supporting people's social media content consistently. It doesn't have to be all time consuming. These little interactions, these micro interactions can really build up as if you do them consistently over time that adds value to people, then naturally people want to return that because we engage in relationships where we get at least the same as we put in back. So we know that if we put a lot in, or someone's putting a lot into us, we want them to keep putting that in. We want them to keep sending us opportunities, keep supporting us. So when there's an opportunity for us to help them in return, we're way more likely to take it because we want to return and reciprocate what they've already done. So the best way to get value is to give it, add value to people, in any way, shape, or form that you can, and not to get it back, not with the expectation. It almost like counteracts it. If you do it with an expectation, do it knowing that it will come back, and it might come back next week, next month. It could come back in 3 years or 5 years. You just don't know, but it does, and it comes back in the most weird, wonderful, you could never predict kind of ways. And that's one of the unpredictable things about people, but it's also one of the most beautiful things because you just can't predict it.
Yeah. So let's say it's act of selfless service.
Acts of selfless service, yes, yes, acts of selfless service, love it, yes, absolutely. You just gotta help people, help them, you know, adding value to them. But you're also, while doing that, you're adding value to yourself because when we help each other, it makes us feel good. It builds we need to feel valued, and we need to feel like we're like contributing in some way. So you're helping yourself and self-efficacy and self-worth at the same time.
Definitely makes sense. And I want to know more about your PhD research as well. So could you tell us a bit about what's your PhD research and maybe one or two lessons that can help our listeners?
Yeah, so my PhD is based in the business school at Durham University, and I'm researching the interactions between academia and industry. So there's a lot of research that already exists around the big gap that exists between academia and industry, but I'm really interested in the human interactions because, like I said, I'm obsessed. Human interactions, when they come together to collaborate, whether that's to co-create knowledge, like try and solve real world problems, just working together. So I'm using design science as my methodology. If you've ever come across the business model canvas, have you ever come across that? Well, that was the output of a PhD student using design science as their methodology. The idea with design science is that you do all the rigorous research that comes with academia. Then you use that knowledge, it's not about just going, oh, we know something we didn't know before. That's only like the first step. You then take that knowledge to create something that helps the current situation. So you don't have to solve it, you just have to improve the situation as it is. So I've really gone deep into the interactions between academics and practitioners, to figure out what's going on and what's working and what's not and why it's not working. And then based on my research, the insights that I got, I've used those insights to create an artifact, which for me is in the form of a framework. And that framework gets delivered in workshops. So I've recently done my first test. So a part of design science is that you have to test it in the real world. So it's very embedded in the real world. And then make any adjustments that are needed based on the test, the feedback that you get, and then that kind of completes the cycle. So it's this ongoing process. So yeah, very much. So it's in to me potentially the artifact that I've designed in the intervention that can help academics and practitioners better interact. It could, in theory, work for any two diverse groups. So whether you've got, architects and interior designers, or you've got mathematicians and geographers, or any two different, where what success looks like in their world's very different, the language that they use very different, timelines are different, but when they do come together, they can really, that's that network of diverse knowledge again, and they can really make wonderful things happen. So potentially the artifact that I've created based on my research could help a lot of different people, politicians and small businesses, any two diverse groups there. So yeah, it's dead interesting.
I love it. And can our listeners find that framework somewhere, or it's like just
It's
joining your
not yet.
workshops?
I'm still testing, but if they want to follow along the journey, connect on LinkedIn, get in touch, absolutely. I'm often sharing updates about how things are going. I just shared an update today on, doing the first test workshop and getting some feedback through interviews. So yeah, they can follow along, and I can't wait to share it with the world. Absolutely.
Definitely. I'll put all of your social media links in the show notes
Yeah,
for our
lush.
listeners. Yeah,
Fabulous.
perfect. And then talking about interactions, right? Whenever we are at a networking event, I've been to loads, right? And sometimes we just having the same conversation. It's just like those small talks, surface level conversation. So what's your advice on how can we really get to know that person deeper? Maybe quickly, or it takes time. I don't know. What's your
Yeah.
advice?
This is one that I hear. This is a genuine issue for people. A lot of people don't like the small talk, or they really want to get deep really quick. Now, the thing with that is that it can scare some other people. It depends on the person. So some people go like, "Whoa, like too deep, too soon." You know, I've just met you. It's like proposing on the first date kind of vibe. And I'm like, oh. Whereas other people will, and I like to go deep and talk about philosophy and faith and all kinds of, like, all kinds of stuff, aliens, whatever. I'll talk about any of it. So it's more about, I think, gauging the person you're interacting with. Some people will only want to talk about like business, work, professional. They won't want to share personal perspectives or personal identity within those situations. So I think first and foremost, it's like reading the dynamic of the person that you're talking to see whether or not it's appropriate and comfortable for them. If you meet someone that they're like you and they want to go deep real soon, like it can come apparent. So maybe finding some little, I like to think of questions as like little seeds, and you can plant a seed and see what comes of it. And like sometimes you plant a seed and it'll just get a little response. Other times you plant a seed and you get like it's just grown into a beast, and you're off and you're like in a deep conversation for the next half an hour without even realizing it. So yeah, I think having some little questions that allow you to open a door for a deeper conversation, and then it gives that person the choice whether or not they want to step through and engage, or if they're not comfortable, then they won't, and that's okay as well. There's no right or wrong. Everyone's just different.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to if you attend more networking events, we'll be self-aware to see according to the body language. Oh, this person wants to know more. Exactly what you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and do you recommend, like as you said, like having some questions prepared before going to a networking event?
Having some objectives is really good. Understanding your purpose for being at the event, whether it's just to learn from people or you're there specifically because you want to talk to or find people from a certain sector, or there might be one person that you know is going to an event. They could be the speaker there, for example. I'm not recommending stalking people, that's a bit far, but you know what I mean. If there's someone that you really do want to talk to, then that's fine as well. Having some like go-to questions is a nice way to create that comfort for yourself, and almost like having a little backup. So sometimes people really struggle with the silence, the awkward silence, and it can like, and that's a really scary thing for them. So if you've got a few questions, things like, oh, have you got any exciting projects coming up that you're working on, or what are the have you set any goals for the rest of the year that you're trying to hit? Or is there a nice ones like, is there anyone that you're looking to meet, at the event, or just in general, who's a good contact for you at the minute? Because I might know someone. Again, we're looking for ways to add value, but also having those questions there. It's like a little safety blanket. So if the conversation's quite dry, then it gives you something to bring it back to life again.
Makes sense, makes sense. And when we are having this conversation, Jenny, like how can we come across, let's say if I'm a business owner, I want to get more business, right? How can I come across more authentic rather than come across transactional?
Really big one is being a good listener, and it takes practice. A lot of us are we don't spend much time like really truly listening to the point where if someone's after they finish talking, if someone else said, tell me what they just said, and you're able to, like, not verbatim, but if you're able to like
Yeah.
synopsize
Summarize. Yeah.
what they've just said. So really listening and like looking at people while they're talking. This happens a lot. I find like more now than ever. Again, it's our what's next, what's next, what's next culture, mentality, digital adoption, whatever. People will be looking at, you talk, someone asks you a question, you're talking to them and they're literally looking over your shoulder while you're
Yeah. It's
answering the
annoying.
question, and
You
they're
can
just
see
being
that.
rude. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't, people don't do it to be rude, they don't do it intentionally. But once again, you've got the self-awareness of, right, I've asked a question, the person speaking to me, I want to really concentrate and listen and like lock in. You don't have to like eyeball them, but like I watch people's mouths when they're talking because it helps, especially if it's noisy. Like really look in and be engaged. That comes across, like people want to feel like someone's listening to them, especially in a world where we don't get it often. So being a good listener is very underrated, but it's a very powerful thing because people feel like they're actually being heard, and that means a lot to them. And that really helps make that really good impression, that authentic connection really helps.
100%. And this is the question I'm started asking all of my guests, which I'll ask you as well at the end, which was like what interpersonal skill stands out in the most successful person you have met. And
Mm.
all of my guests, literally 90% of the guests said to make others feel important
Yeah. Yeah.
when they're talking.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you can really help someone feel like valued and like heard and um like respected, then absolutely it has a massive impact on people. And it's so basic, it's just a basic human need, but it's one that we don't get met very often. So when you can provide that for people, it really stays with them.
100%. And then switching gears to after networking now. And this is like the probably a question that you have been asked a million times, but I want to know more about it. It's like, how can we nurture that relationship or the contact that we have got from the networking event?
So again, for me, it goes back to adding that value. Um, Adding value to the people that are in our networks as and when we can. And again, this is where I think we blur the lines between value and volume. So we really, because of social media, we really have started being like, oh, I want more followers, volume, 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 numbers, numbers, numbers. But actually, it's better to have like 10 people in your network that you are adding value to, who are out in the world looking for opportunities to open doors for you and reciprocating, than having 10,000 followers, none of which who would ever buy from you. They don't really connect to you or know you, because then it's just vanity metrics. So thinking about people as people and not numbers, and really looking for ways that you can add value to them, whether that's on a large scale. So sharing your knowledge is a great way to add value to people who are connected to you, because they learn something, they can upskill themselves, they can pick up a little hint that can change how they do something that makes their lives easier or more efficient, whatever it is. That's a great way. So sharing content. It also showcases that you are knowledgeable in your field, which helps build those associations in people's minds. But yeah, if you can go deep on, some people in your network, you don't have to, see them every week or speak on the phone every day. It could be once every 6 months, having like a 2, 3 hour catch up lunch where you really are connecting, like what's going on with you, what you're working on, what can I help you with, who are you looking for, what do you need? So when I'm out in the world, I can send people your way and vice versa. Um, Going deep with a few connections like that, while simultaneously adding value to people, whether it is just pressing a button on LinkedIn to support their content, introducing them to someone, speaking their name in a room, all these little interactions. That's really where people feel like, you know, you're thinking of them and you've helped them in a way, or that's where we can really nurture those connections and relationships.
I love that. And I think you also mentioned in one of the podcasts I listened, like when you're having a one-to-one conversation with someone, like keep your phone not on the side, but like switch it off.
Get it out the room. Get it out of sight. Yeah, absolutely. Loads of research into the presence of a phone. It changes the quality of conversation. People put their phones on the desk and they'll turn it upside down as a way of saying like, "Oh, you're really important to me. My phone's upside down." It's not. What it's doing is saying that if that phone rings, I'm going to stop you. So people don't open up as much, then don't go as deep, and it's distracting for you who's having it there. It's tempting to just pick up and check, or if it beeps, you want to look at it. So like saying to someone when you sit down with them, I'm going to switch my phone off, or my phone's on silent, so I'm not going to get interrupted. It's in my handbag or it's in my jacket pocket, so I can't even see it. Like, I want to really like catch up with you. I want to know what's going on. How's things? How's the kids? How's whatever? And like give people that space that again we don't often get in life.
Love that. And this is a takeaway because I often keep it on the side, but learning from you, I'm going to keep it way somewhere, in the pocket or just switch it off.
Do it. Mine's not even in the room. Mine's actually
Love that.
downstairs at the minute. It's just by accident because I've killed the battery to it. It's
The
on
only
charge.
reason I have my phone next to me is to take a picture after for the Instagram. So that's it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, final question, like I said, I ask all of my podcast guests. So, that is, what interpersonal skills stands out in the most successful people you have met?
Oh, I've got to be true to my beliefs and say that. See, it depends how you measure success. This is my academic brain going, well, how do you measure success? Because then if it's about the richest people, that doesn't necessarily the most fulfilled and happy people, very different. Like rich doesn't equate to happy.
Yeah. However you see us, however, up to
To
you.
me, yeah. So how I measure success is like fulfillment in life. So for me, the most successful people under that context are those who love themselves, who know themselves and accept themselves, because then everything else falls, and after everything else, you can create a life that you love. You're not constrained by what society tells you success is. You're self-assured enough to know that you can create whatever life you want, and it allows you to more deeply empathetically connect to other people when you really connect with yourself. So for me, the most successful people are the ones who know who they are and they accept it.
Love that. Definitely agree. And again, comes back to self identity, knowing yourself and living it.
Living it, yeah, and appreciating it, and yeah, enjoying it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. It's been such a good episode. I really enjoyed talking to you. We
Oh,
definitely need to do a part two once your research is
lots
out
of
as
love, love.
well.
Absolutely, I'll be
And we
back.
do it in person. I'll come to Durham and we do it in person.
Business school, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
done.
Love that, Sid.
Done. Thank you to our listeners as well. I'll link Jenny's all social media handles in the show notes. So make sure you check it out. And please see her LinkedIn videos. I love it. And that's why I've seen all of them. And I had messaged Jenny as well. Hey, Jenny, I loved your LinkedIn videos. I would love to have you on my podcast because of just the
Amelia.
energy. And yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's it. And anything, Jenny, else you would like to share with our listeners?
thanks for having me. Thank you so much for having me on. I really love chatting to you. And like you say, we'll do a follow up after I've got my PhD, and I'll share the framework and
Yeah,
chick
done.
flags.
Done.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
love Durham. I'm a Durham graduate as well. So we'll do it.
yeah. Get you back to Durham. Lovely.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.